the Baen Free Radio Hour.
On the podcast, drunken universal archetypes create deja vu and ennui in after-hour shenanigans. Blank verse and loaded prose. Plus, we continue with the complete audiobook serialization of Alliance of Equals by Sharon and Steve Miller. All right now. Welcome to the Baen Free Radio Hour podcast. It's an honor to have you along. I'm Baen Senior Editor Tony Daniel. This time we have David Weber here at the Baen Studios in person for an interview. Plus we have Baen publisher and my boss Toni Weisskopf sitting in on the interview. We talked with David about one of the novels in the Honor Harrington series, Honor Among Enemies, which is out now in a signed leatherbound edition. David talks about how that book was a turning point in the Honor Harrington series, with a reinvigorated Honor returning to take on galactic bad actors. Plus, in this interview, David talks about the next book in the series, which will be out in October 2018. You're going to hear the title of that book. That's right, you will hear it here first, and you will hear David and Toni talk about it a little bit. Of course, no spoilers, so stand by for that. And we also continue with the complete audiobook serialization of Liaden Universe novel Alliance of Equals by Sharon and Steve Miller. Now here's the news. New free fiction and nonfiction is available at the Baen.com website. We do this every month, and we have some amazing stuff. First, there's Sufficient Unto the Day, an all-new story by award-winning, and I mean really award-winning, science fiction and fantasy author Tim Powers, who I consider a great writer. It's that time of year when families head home to celebrate Thanksgiving with turkey, dressing, and a smorgasbord of side dishes. It's a time of pleasant reunions, but also a time rife with awkward relationships. And for the Coldharp family, things are even stranger than in the average household, because several of the Coldharps have shuffled off this mortal coil. But that doesn't mean they won't be asking you to pass the gravy. And when the spirits of the dearly departed show up for dinner, things can get a little otherworldly. Our nonfiction this month takes a sinister turn as science fiction writer and neuroscience researcher Benjamin C. Kinney delves into the mysteries of human-handedness. Chances are, if you're listening to this, you are right-handed. 90% of humanity is. Have you ever stopped to wonder, well, what's wrong with me? I mean, as a left-hander, I can tell you that your type have designed all the can openers backward, for one thing, but why? Why is there handedness? What does being right or left-handed say about the structure of the brain? And it turns out it says a lot about the basic organization of the brain. Find out more in this great essay by Ben Kinney, The Mysteries of Handedness. Sufficient Unto the Day by the great Tim Powers, and Right-Hand Human Brain, The Mysteries of Handedness by Benjamin C. Kinney are now available at Baen.com. They're on the main page and will be available long-term, potentially until the heat death of the universe or even beyond, as part of the ebook Free Stories 2017 and the other ebook Free Nonfiction 2017, which you can get for free at Baen eBooks. You can download them there in all ebook formats, including for the Kindle. So do that, and we'll give you a hand, the other one. I want to welcome David Weber to the podcast, and joining us also is Baen publisher Toni Weisskopf. It's an excellent pod this time. Hello, guys, folks.
Hi.
Hi, Tony. Hi, podcast listeners.
This is me waving to the microphone.
David Weber is the creator of the internationally best-selling Honor Harrington series and the Honorverse, which the series is set. David has had a lot of New York Times bestsellers. We can probably get the number from Marlowe, but I'll bet it's climbed over 30. And there are over 8 million David Weber books in print. David is also the author of many other Baen books, including the epic fantasy Basel series, with latest entry in the Ken Hoden subseries, Sword of the South, and he's the author with Linda Evans of 2 books in the Multiverse series, Hell's Gate and Hell Has No Fury, and really recently, and out, I believe it was in 2017, right?
Yeah.
with Joel Presby, which was The Road to Hell. He's been writing a series set in the past of the Honorverse with Timothy Zahn and Thomas Pope called the Manticore Ascendant series. The last entry in that was a call to arms, and coming next spring is a call to vengeance, which is book 3 in the series. We're looking forward to that. That'll be the next Weber, I think, that will be out.
Call to victory.
Call to vengeance.
Call to vengeance?
Call to vengeance.
Really?
Yes.
Okay.
Well,
yeah.
of course, you do have.
You didn't notice, did you? But you had to write letter.
You have the power to change that, Tony. If you
One is tempted.
You could do it right here, right. All right. So that one will be out, and I bet it's out in New York pretty soon too, because it's underway at the copy editor. Now out at booksellers everywhere, and a little hard to find, it must be said, is Honor Among Enemies, which is a reissue of book 7 in the Honor Harrington series. We've been bringing out the Honor Harrington books in these great signed leatherbound editions, or basilisk bound, something like that. And more are coming up. So even if this one is sold out, keep in mind that the program continues, and look out for these. David, as Honor Among Enemy opens, let's talk about that book for a little bit, if you don't mind. Honor is seemingly content as a Duchess, Countess. She's Countess
at that point, yes.
And she runs
the stedholder. She's also a stedholder at the beginning of Honor.
And, well, the stedholder is what makes her the Countess, or no?
The Countess is a courtesy title because of the fact that she's a stedholder.
Okay. But she's beyond like just like a dame or a sir in English terms. She's among the ruling.
What Honor didn't realize when they asked her to be a stedholder is that a stedholder is kind of like the autocrat of all the rushes in his steading. Okay? And this is an actual head of state who has however much parliament he or she chooses to have, and any decree that the stedholder issues has the force of law unless it contradicts the planetary constitution.
Well,
it's more like an Eastern European kind of, like, we rule everything and your life is ours.
Well, one of the things I love that Honor did about that, though, is that she established baseball.
Yes.
And she established the right kind of baseball.
Well, no, she learned about baseball from the Graysons.
Yes.
They already had baseball. and in fact, there's a scene in Honor Among Enemies where she sees they've been having riots. And she sees these guys with clubs heading to the park, and she's telling her armsman, "Get the guard down here, get the guard down." He's like, "What?" She says, she's really pissed with him because, she says, "Don't we have enough trouble without people taking clubs with them?" And he's like, "What?" And he looks and says, "Those are baseball bats."
Ah, that's right.
She says, "Baseball?" He says, "Yes, you use hit the baseball." She says, "Is it like golf?" Kind of thing. So it gave me an excuse later to have Andrew explain a balk to someone.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
I haven't done the infield fly rule
because
yet.
no
That's
one
on
can.
my list.
Yeah.
Yes. Sorry,
right.
Tony.
But that opens up baseball metaphors for you to use in contemporary terms.
In Grayson, yes, it certainly does. Strikeout and all kinds of things. The Graysons used them. I don't know if people have noticed.
Yes.
But they do. The Manticorans, not so much. There was going to be a scene before Alistair got killed. There was going to be a scene. The Harrington Tree Cats are in the planetary series. And of course, it's all happening on Grayson. It's already happened. But Honor has had they just delivered, like the video of the games, and she's been watching it. And Alistair comes in and he wants to talk to her. She says, "Shh, sit down. And he says, "What?" He says, "It's the top of the 9th. We're down 1 run. The bases are loaded. 2 out. And our power hitter is coming to the plate." and Alistair looks at her and he says, "Where's the goalkeeper?" I didn't get to write it. Sorry, Tony.
It's sad.
Well, we were talking about alternate Honorverse stories earlier.
I have to show you sometime the thing that I wrote for my website about how the Safehold series won't end. And it has like Dahak dropping in. Turns out the Gabab are actually the Occultani in an alternate universe.
So there's entire novels that you've conceived and written parts of, but haven't been able to use.
Oh, absolutely. There's actually Tony, I don't want to tell you this, but there are at least 2 complete novels sitting around that I can't use because they're so inseparably tied to the Honorverse. I can't file off. There's no way to file off the serial numbers and do something else with it.
I see this as a positive.
Right.
But you can't use them because the way that the Honorverse has evolved has superseded what it is.
Yeah. I mean, these are like fully developed plot outlines.
Yeah.
With maybe a third of the chapters already written. Mm-hmm. And I just, because of the fact, it all goes back to the fact that Honor didn't die.
Right.
Okay. And I'm happy that Honor didn't die.
On schedule.
In a lot of ways. Yeah, as scheduled.
According to your giant original outline.
Yeah. She was the original series was only supposed to go about 8 books before Honor was killed. Okay. And then with Eric and the whole genetic, slavery issue being brought forward, and it's really made some problems for me over the last 3 or 4 books because the Solarian League was supposed to have had 20 more years to get a clue and develop better warfighting technology before this war broke out. And so I've been kind of having to regroup a little bit on my way through. And I think in Uncompromising Honor, which has been handed in. And
the E-Arc is not ready yet.
It is scheduled for next October.
Yes.
That E-Arc will not be ready for quite a little while.
I get it back on, and there's some good combat in here.
Great.
Okay.
Great. I think all of us Honor fans are going to be really, really pleased.
And it's 296,000 words long in its current format, according to the the word count.
So it's a lean. It's a lean.
It's a lean book. It's actually I think the longest of the Honor Harringtons, but there is very little in here that isn't directly moving the storyline ahead.
Great.
Except for Honor feeding Raoul the green peas. That's that was what I had to put in.
Okay.
Had to put it. Yes.
Raoul is her son.
Yes, Raoul
And
is
she's
her
feeding
son.
her son.
Yes.
Green peas. We have that scene. We know we have.
No. She's attempting to feed him green peas. And there is a scene in here where Emily says to Hamish in Honor, "You do realize you're talking about feeding a child, not fighting a battle." And then she says, "Wait, forget I said that." Honor says truer words were never spoken.
Yeah.
But anyway,
Here come the missile pods.
yes. Just pretend it's a missile, Rob. Okay, I'm sorry.
All right.
All right. Well, we heard it. I mean, a lot of people that are listening, and perhaps I don't know whether you've even said the title out in public before, but this will be the first time people have heard about this. You've done it. This is the next Honor Harrington book, and it's going to be called Uncompromising Honor.
Uncompromising Honor.
Unless Tony changes that to
and it ends
a call to victory.
It ends the original. It reaches the original end point that I had in mind for the story arc beginning with Basilisk Station.
Yeah.
Where we're at exactly the same point. We just got there about 25 years earlier in universe time than we were supposed to, so that
And
the
about
next generation of
15
Harrington
novels.
about 15 more novels. Yeah, what can I say? I found other things. It's been fun, and it is sort of interesting that 2018 will be the 25th anniversary of Basilisk. It came out in 93.
93.
Yeah.
Okay.
So it'll be, took me exactly a quarter of a century to get the 8 books to write.
Wow.
Yes.
When I first read it, I really enjoyed it, and I never would have predicted that this is where we would be 25 years later.
I would not have either. I think one of the most brilliant marketing decisions in the history of publishing was Jim releasing the first 2 like a month apart. I think that was. Did I ever tell you about Carol and Sherry and the Publishers Weekly ad for those 2 books?
No, I don't think so.
When you did the Publishers Weekly ad for the 2 books, you left the author's name off the books.
Yeah.
The art that you used was earlier. Okay.
It was the cover comp where it's the Honor Harrington is the big thing up top. Yeah.
So I walk into Magnum Opus Con in Greenville, South Carolina.
Yeah.
And Carolyn is there. Okay.
Who is Carolyn?
CJ Cherry, Carolyn Cherry. And I'm wearing a T-shirt that I'd had made at Kinko's that has the cover for On Basilisk Station on it with my name on it, because I never saw the Publishers Weekly yet.
Right.
And I walk in, and Carolyn is like, and she turns around to me like this, and she looks at me, and then she grabs the front of my shirt, and she holds out, and she says, "You wrote it!" And I'm like, "What?" She says, "That is the most brilliant marketing ploy I've ever seen." And I was like, "Yes!" And then I said, well, "What was that?"
You're
but
like,
that was,
it's
see?
just a T-shirt.
It was a brilliant marketing ploy. You left the author's name off as a tease. See? That just, if anybody asks, it's like when I asked you why Nimitz's eyes were red on the first cover when it clearly says they're green in the book.
Right.
And Toni's response, she didn't even miss a beat. Flash bounce.
Yeah.
Right.
Yes.
Clearly,
Our artists go to the last.
That's right. The last little detail.
Absolutely.
Multiverse.
They can't correct for that in the future.
They didn't realize they had to.
Yeah.
See, if they'd known they had to,
They would.
they could have fixed it. Yeah.
Exactly.
We'll get it right on the next. We'll get it right on the mass market.
Back to Honor Among Enemies.
Yes.
What she's doing on Grayson at this point is she's been rusticated, more or less, for having killed a peer of the realm who really needed it in a duel.
Indeed.
The fact that he was holding an empty gun at the moment that she shot him is held against him by her enemies. Her partisans point out that the reason his gun is empty is that he just shot her in the back. Okay, so it's kind of like, but she's also, and I think some people have missed this, Honor's had a complete mental breakdown between the previous book and this one. I mean, she's just completely lost it. And she's been putting herself back together on Grayson. She feels like she's been hiding, which in a sense she has. But she's been putting herself back together. And the Honor that emerges on the other side of this is actually, in my opinion, quite a different Honor from the one who walked into it on the other side. Mm-hmm. It's kind of like Alicia DeVry in Path of the Fury.
Yeah.
After she puts herself back together, there's this balance in there because now she knows how far she can be reduced, if you see what I'm saying. And that's really the point at which Honor begins changing from the person who is like, I will never put myself forward, to the one who tells the investigator, you're not even interested in my version. All right, you're fired. You can't fire me. I'm not in your chain of command. Let me explain something to you. I can fire you, or I can talk to Pat Givens, and if she doesn't fire you, I can talk to Thomas Caparelli, and if he doesn't fire you, I can talk to Queen Elizabeth. But trust me, you don't want me to. Okay, that Honor Harrington compared to the Honor Harrington of, say, Basilisk Station or Honor of the Queen, mm-hmm. I mean, she's really... I don't think that you can write a series of books as long as the ones I've written about Honor without having the character change. Because if you do, it turns into Star Trek books where you can't change Kirk, you can't change McCoy, you can't change Spock.
Right.
And it's only the secondary characters that you really read the books for. Okay? So if Honor is going to maintain that centrality, there has to be an Honor who is changing.
She seems less grim also in this book because she's sort of found a peace, right?
Yeah.
Well, she's dealt with the biggest of her pre-novel crosses was Pavel Young.
Yes.
Okay. Because of the history that they had and the fact that his family was doing everything they could to break her kneecaps, on her career and everything else.
Yeah, but in more what she was doing to herself
because she wasn't dealing with what had happened.
Yeah,
with
exactly.
him. And then when he has Paul Tankersley killed, okay, that's really what pushes her over the edge.
Yeah.
She basically, if you read Honor, Field of Dishonor carefully, you'll realize that she's holding herself together long enough to kill Pavel Young.
Yeah.
That's all she's interested in doing from the moment that she hears that Paul is dead. And then she's accepting the sacrifice of her career. She's throwing everything away because she's going to get the guy who killed Paul.
Yeah.
And she doesn't have quite that kind of a berserker mode in her after she comes back together on Grayson. I mean, she's still capable. She's still capable of deciding the universe would be better without you in it and improving the universe, anytime that it's necessary. But the reason that she takes the commission in Honor of the Queen when they offer her the slot is there's two reasons. One is it gets her back into Manticoran uniform. Mm-hmm. It gets her back on a bridge, and she needs to be there because they're fighting a war and she's not in it. Okay. The other one is somebody has to do it. Okay. And that is really and truly the linchpin of Honor Harrington. I will tell you that at the end of the book, Uncompromising Honor, Elizabeth Winton, in the last sentence of the book, gives the best summation of Honor Harrington's character, in my opinion, anybody's ever given in any of the books. I'm going to tell you that.
All right, you're tearing up.
Well, that's
so, yeah, I'm also going to say, spoiler alert, I haven't read it yet, so let's not.
It's not. We can cut it out of the podcast, but not out of your brain.
That's right.
I got you.
That's not to reveal the end of the book at the moment. But
there's one other thing we said.
Is it a summation of? I mean,
her character.
Yeah, and Elizabeth is the queen.
Yes.
So it's sort of like Ford and Brass pronouncing on what the hell just happened here.
Well, let me say this too. The other thing about
Uncompromising Honor.
No, about honor among enemies.
Yeah.
Honor among enemies, if you read it carefully, establishes all but one element of the technology which later comes into play to give Manticore the edge that it needs to beat the Republic of Haven and later the Solarian League.
Ah.
All of the technology that is later used is introduced, at least in embryonic form, except for the FTL-COM.
I mean, one of the things...
Remember, there were only going to be 8 books. I had to get it out there quick.
Yeah, you did.
One of the things about... I mean, one of the plot devices in here is that Honor... She's been sent off to fight some pirates while the war's going on over here. And she's given these ships that don't have any armor on them.
They're basically merchantmen with guns.
Yeah, but they've got and some of their experimental stuff that may or may not work, right? Mm-hmm. And so she's sent off into the back she's sent off into Silesia,
which is kind of like if we were serious about doing something about Somalia pirates. Mm-hmm. Okay, except that the Somalian pirates are not having anywhere near the impact on international trade that Silesia is having on Manticore's interstellar trade at this point. So she's basically sent on a commerce protection mission, and the ships are not intended to take on first-line warships or anything else. And they really and truly are eggshells armed with sledgehammers. Okay, as a couple of battle cruisers find out in the course of them. Or I think there's a total of 4. I'd have to go back and look. I think there are 4. There might be 5. There's hers, and I think Alice Truman has one, and Sam, the Duke of her comm officer from the first book,
right,
has one.
But this is the first time that she's not the captain; she's the group commander.
She's also the captain.
She's also the captain.
Yeah, she's wearing 2 hats. She's the captain of the Wayfarer,
yeah,
and the senior officer of the squadron. And one of the reasons it's set up that way is that when they sent her, even though it's up to her to determine what her deployment plan is going to be, it was almost inevitable that they were going to operate at least in pairs and probably singletons because of the amount of space they had to cover, and because the guys they were supposed to be going after are basically souped up rowboats with guns, not first-line battleships. They didn't know that the peeps had sent an entire fleet into Silesia to help raid, I mean, I just hope I never meet Honor in a dark alley somewhere.
Oh, yeah.
Because she is going to be so pissed with me.
Uh-huh.
You keep
kind of like
putting
that
her
scene
into these situations.
That scene in Last Action Hero. Don't even like you very much.
Well, you keep on taking parts,
Yeah. I'm pretty much done with that,
Yeah.
So these ships are they're carriers for some small attack
light attack
vehicles,
craft.
And they have torpedoes.
big missiles.
And they have a big energy weapon.
Yes.
Main weapon.
They have like super dreadnought sized energy weapons on a freighter, which is kind of like the Spanish Inquisition. Nobody's going to see it coming, kind of thing. The other thing that this book does is, I think some people don't realize Honor Harrington is a brilliant tactician, blah, 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 blah. It's all that's true. But the way she really accomplishes what she accomplishes is through what she gets out of the people around her. If you look, that's really what it is. And actually, Lucian Cortez tells her at one point, statistically, there's a measurable difference in the ability of officers before and after they serve with you. And she's like, nah, but it's true.
Well, I mean, that's what a charismatic leader does, is get the best out of his or her people.
Exactly. It's kind of like, I've had people say, "Oh my God, Honor Harrington, she's perfect. Okay, she never makes a mistake." Yeah, and I'm like, okay, let's see. She shot a prisoner without a trial. She missed, but she had the muzzle against his forehead. She squeezed the trigger, and the only reason she didn't kill him was that somebody else knocked the gun aside, and then her own people wrestled her to the ground and said, "No, you can't kill him." And I'm like, some people would think that's a minor character flaw, but they're like, "No, he needed killing. It's okay." That's the reason in one of the books where Mike Hinkey critiques her tactics at Cerberus.
Yes.
Because everybody's like, "Oh, it's brilliant. It's brilliant." No, it's not brilliant. They were stupid tactics. The problem was that Honor Harrington couldn't walk away and leave those people behind.
Right.
And the only way she could do anything about it was to put together this cockamamie plan that only worked because the author was on her side. Okay, kind of thing. But everybody's like, "Oh, it was brilliant. It was brilliant. I tried real hard to explain that it wasn't, but okay.
Well, sometimes it's better to be lucky than brilliant,
Well, yeah, that's true. It doesn't hurt to be both. I mean,
Yeah.
But the other problem is,
I think the nice thing is that she isn't a superhero. Okay, that she is a real human being. She does make mistakes. Things don't always go her way, and that's okay.
Well, I think the other thing that people miss is that competent people make competent mistakes.
Right.
Okay, they don't just suddenly wake up and say, "I think I'll be stupid today."
Right.
Okay,
I'm homeless. Yeah. So,
they take.
It takes
they
time
have
to
bad
make-
information,
Yeah.
or and they make a mistake. They see what they needed to see, like Honor needed to be able to play. Okay, there's another scene. It's in the book where she's captured. No, I'm sorry, it's not. It's in Echoes of Honor.
Okay.
It's in Echoes of Honor.
There we go.
When they break her out of the brig.
Okay.
Okay. 3 of her armsmen are killed breaking her out of the brig. Andreas Venizelos, who's been with her since he's killed breaking her out of the brig. Everybody's down except Andrew LaFollette. Okay? And she knows from what Andrew's told her that Alistair McKean and the other prisoners are holding the boat bay. And they're supposed to launch, if she can't get there. But it's Alistair McKean, okay? He's not going anywhere until she's there, no matter what, and she knows it. Okay. And Andrew LaFollette goes down when she's already in the elevator. Okay?
Mm-hmm.
She had to push the button. Okay? There's another 150 people down in the boat bay who are going to die if she doesn't get there. He has just, as far as she knows, been killed doing his duty, which is to get her this far.
Yeah.
So what does she do? She runs out into the crossfire, grabs him, drags him into the elevator, gets hit, almost dies, loses her left arm, okay, out of all this. And people are like, "Yes!" And I'm like, as a human being, yes, okay, as an officer, as a steadholder, as an all this, it was absolutely the wrong decision for her to make.
Yeah.
But because it was the right decision for her as a human being who cared about this person to make, nobody sees it as a weakness.
Yeah. I mean, I remember that scene. I remember, her thought processes as this is happening. So you feel it. You feel it.
She can't not do it.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
I think that's one reason the character works.
Yep.
is that she refuses to abandon who she is for what she is. If you see what
That's
I'm
a
saying.
really nice way of putting
Well,
it. Yeah.
you hear about it in Honor Among Enemies. There is a conspiracy aboard the ship with some jerk crew members, low ratings that are, and one of our sub-heroes is a young
Aubrey Wonderman.
Yes, Aubrey Wonderman, it's a wonderful subplot. How he comes into his own, and he's like quite the scared young
With good reason.
100-pound weakling when he starts out, but yeah, he's much like the guy in the Charles Atlas comic book.
Not really so much. He just falls into bad company. He falls into Horace Harkness's company.
But he's
and
the
then the
guy,
Marines.
he's put upon.
Yes.
He's put upon at the beginning, and these guys you hear them bitching at the beginning about how Honor always gets everybody killed, and they're you think, well, they're right about that.
Absolutely right.
But the thing is that it's like it's the other thing is you get killed doing your best, and you're happy if you're a good officer.
Yeah. Well, okay, you're maybe not happy.
Well, you're not happy, but
you did what you set out to.
Yeah,
do.
I mean, you're fulfilling what your greatest potential, and that's what Honor brings out in you.
Yeah.
But if you're not going to be somebody that does that kind of thing,
well,
then you might just die and be in a bad situation.
Well, the other thing the thing is that the quality members of the Navy know that the only reason any of Honor's people lived was because she was there to get them out. And there's a scene, in Honor of the Queen, when Alice Truman is being sent home to get help. Her ship's been all shot up, and she knows that Honor has a damaged heavy cruiser and a damaged destroyer, and they're up against a modern battle cruiser that outmasses both of them put together about 10 times. And her ship is too damaged to fight. And so she tells her engineer to take the governors off the hyperdrive. They're going to go all the way up to and if they bounce off the upper wall, the entire ship will be destroyed. Everybody will be killed, etc. And her engineer says, "Did you happen to mention this to Captain Harrington?" And she says, "Oh, it slipped my mind somehow." Kind of. She's like, "Oh." And she's thinking about this as she goes, and she's thinking about the fact that sometimes what it really comes down to is that there's one person who absolutely will never fail you, and that means you can never fail her. And that's exactly how Honor gets what she gets out of these people. Okay? They know that, the only way that Honor Harrington won't be there for her is if Honor Harrington got killed.
Yep.
Okay? And so that's what they give her in return.
And Aubrey comes to, because he does some really cool, brilliant stuff himself as he goes through Honor Among Enemies. He comes to understand this about himself as well, and at a much lower degree. I mean, he's just a dude that does computer stuff. But
Honor Among Enemies, in some ways, is my favorite book for dealing with non-officers.
Yeah.
In the honor group.
Yeah.
Because so much of the rest of it is there's tactics and everything else that you spend your time on the command deck. The other place where I get to do that some is where I'm dealing with the snotties, because they're interfacing with the senior enlisted and whatnot. And of course, they're just larval stage officers themselves, kind of thing. But by and large, because of the nature of the books, it's really not practical to do that in most of these novels.
do you think this is the first book where we got a rating subplot?
I would say,
because I can't remember one.
I would say in Basilisk Station, you've got Harkness and Scotty Tremaine.
Right.
Okay, which is the beginning of that duo. And that's kind of, I've always had senior enlisted that you've seen, the bosuns on the ships, the sergeants and whatnot. You just haven't seen a lot of the interaction of the specialist third and
but that's some of the reason why you've had novels and stories set in the Honorverse that let you tell more and different kinds of stories.
Yeah. Oh, absolutely. For example, in the Manticore Ascendant series, Travis Long starts as enlisted.
Yeah.
and Ginger Lewis does the same thing later on in the Honor books. And we do meet Aubrey later when he's like a senior master chief. Okay, nobody messes with him now, kind of. But the Manticore Ascendant books let us take a character who was enlisting in the Danish Navy, because that's what Manticore is at this point. I mean, it's more like Iceland than Denmark, okay? And then the truth of the matter is that in the first couple of books, the guy who's trying to torpedo the Navy is absolutely right, even though he's the villain, the domestic villain. He's absolutely right that according to everything they know, they don't need these ships.
Right.
Okay, this is like a South American republic with 2 battleships. Right. Okay, it's like, what do we need them for? They're just money pits, kind of thing. And then, of course, because it's a David Weber novel, you find out why you need them.
Well, it's a failure of imagination, a failure to
appreciate
see.
they live in the Honorverse where bad stuff happens,
or like the real world.
You might discover a new means of transportation, the wormhole method. For
some things like that could happen. Yeah,
it kind of reminds me of I just saw a big documentary on the Grand Coulee Dam, which was they just poured all this money into, and they were like, it was this giant, and then suddenly World War II happened, and fortuitously we needed a lot of aluminum, so they built boat. It's like we had this huge secret weapon sitting out in the
that we just built because we needed to put people to work, and look, it makes electricity. How cool!
It seems like genius. Maybe that we are in a David Weber novel.
I hope not. I hope not. Although it would be better than being in a John Ringo novel. I'm just saying. I'm not sure about a Larry Correia novel because Larry does stuff more like retail, and John and I do it wholesale.
Yeah, so long as you're not you're not on the
puff list.
Well, no, so long as you're not on the puff list, so long as you're puff exempt, you're good.
My favorite character out of that entire series he's done is Mr. Franks. I like him.
I agree.
Y'all are cold, dangerous people.
He's cool. He's cool.
So the other somebody else we meet who's on the entire opposite end of the spectrum from Aubrey is Hauptmann, Klaus
Hauptmann, yes,
who we meet twice in the book, and it's a really nice way that the book ties together with itself at the end. He is
well, you meet him originally in Basilisk Station.
Yeah, I mean, he's in many ways he's an this another thing about Honor is that she often turns her enemies into helpers, even if they don't mean to be.
Yes. Well, in this case, he screwed up. He raised a really good daughter. Okay.
Yeah. And
she's what turns him around. She shames him in his own eyes.
Yeah, but he actually cares about his daughter.
He does. And he has enough sense of personal integrity that once he has to look, he realizes that not only was Stacy disappointed in him, she was right.
Yeah.
And he never really becomes a friend of Honor. Stacy does. His daughter does. He never really becomes her friend, but he does become her ally. And it also helps that he is as firmly committed to the Abolition League as she is.
Well, I think that's actually a nice distinction, that it is perfectly possible to be an ally without being a friend.
Yeah. He does, the personal, visceral anger that he felt at her goes away.
Yeah.
Okay, but he's never going to be the kind of personality that really meshes well with Honor's command style. But Honor has grown enough that by the time she's Stedholder and Duchess Harrington, she knows how to take a situation like that and make it work.
Right.
Okay.
And he's basically responsible for pulling her back into the Manticore Navy.
Yes, he figures he's got a win-win situation here. Either she's good enough to solve the problem, or the pirates will kill her, and either way he comes out ahead. Yeah. That's his thinking at the beginning.
He's incredibly rich, and his conglomerate is getting hit hard by the pirates and the Silesian Confederates.
Well, in fairness to Hauptmann, it's not just that his conglomerate's getting hit hard; it's that his people are getting killed, and that's a critical part of his character. He's kind of one of the the robber barons with a genuine sense of noblesse oblige. You know, these are my people. They're loyal to me. They work hard for me, and therefore I'm responsible for their welfare. He's a little bit like one of my other favorite characters in the universe is Michael Oversteegen, the aristocrat who makes no bones about the fact that he's an aristocrat, and of course I take advantage of it. But in return, I owe the Star Kingdom my service, you know, kind of thing. I've had fun. In some ways, I've actually had more fun with the supporting cast than I have with Honor. Honor is this deeply, intensely personal kind of communion kind of thing, but that I have with the character, just because we've been together for so long, you know. But the other characters are the ones where I can do kind of the quirky stuff, like when Terekhov in the Saganami, the tradition of Saganami, threatens to blow up the space station with all the civilians aboard it if the locals push him, and afterwards Byrne tells you were bluffing, which he says, no, I wasn't bluffing, and they push it, I'll blow them all to hell. You know, it's kind of, you can't see Honor saying that.
And yet it felt so good.
Yes, it did. It did. You know.
And she saves Haussmann's butt at the end of the book as well. So let's sum up and talk about this book in particular. I think it is in some ways a turning point because, like you say, this is a new Honor that then carries through the next of the book, and this is the Honor that is not striving for her place in the Manticore Navy. Yeah. This is somebody that they need.
Well, Honor and the books themselves change fundamentally in about 3 points from Basilisk Station on, because the nature of the conflict is changing and the nature of who Honor is changing. Yeah. So she's going from one level of operating to the next level of operating. She's going from I am the starship captain, I may be the flag captain, but I'm a captain of a ship. Mm-hmm. In Honor Among Enemies, she's moving into squadron command, but she's still a captain. But she's moving to that I am now a subordinate commander of units. And then she makes the final move into I am the commander of fleets who shape strategy at the highest level. So you're following her career. And at each level, she has to deal with different kinds of problems, which means that she's using different skills, different parts of her personality, and that the feel of the stories changes because the matrix within which she's operating changes.
Yeah, and the way that you handle this, and your grounding in history is one of the reasons why these things resonate, not only with readers because they feel authentic, but also with military folk. And in fact, you've just been invited to speak, I believe, or participate in.
Actually, I am the final speaker.
Oh, at
yes, the U.S. Naval Academy Museum is doing a symposium specifically on fleet tactics in science fiction. Yeah. And one of the presenters is going to be speaking specifically about the Honorverse, and I have the last 30 minutes to speak to the audience. It's going to be a small live audience. It's only like a 40-seat auditorium, but they're going to be live streaming it to practically every Navy base in existence. And I think the URL for it is on my website now. We have it, so you can actually see it when it happens. And they will give us a link to the video afterward, so that we can. And
we'll share that on the Baen website and the Baen social media.
I think it's going to be fun.
The book is Honor Among Enemies, the signed leatherbound edition. It's out now at booksellers, and maybe a few copies are still available here or there. So look for that. And if you can always get the regular hardcover and track David down and get him to sign it.
This is true.
He's out there. He has appearances, and then you'll have your own signed hardcover edition.
I think that the cons were trying not to invite me for a while because of the health issues last year.
Right. Mm-hmm.
But we've got I think 3 already for 2018. So
yeah.
We'll be back out there.
Yeah, so if you want a reading copy immediately
Yeah.
of Honor Among Enemies, of course you can download the ebook at Baen eBooks and wherever fine ebooks can be found.
See, first you have to download the ebook so you can read it immediately. And then you need to order the regular hardcover to put on your shelf as a placeholder so you can look at it and it can be pretty. Okay? And then you need to buy the leatherbound and put it in your vault somewhere. Okay?
Oh, these things appreciate, yeah. So it's an
I
investment.
know. I don't know whether or not the books appreciate, but authors appreciate your buying them.
And on that horrible pun.
What he said. Yeah, so, David, Toni, thank you so much for being with us.
Thank you, Toni.
Thank you, Toni Daniel.
This is another entry in Alliance of Equals, a Liaden Universe novel by Sharon Lee and Steve Miller. Beset by the angry remnants of the Department of the Interior and challenged at every turn by opportunists on their new homeworld of Surebleak and low on funds, Clan Corval desperately needs to reestablish its position as one of the top trading clans in known space. To this end, Master Trader Sean Yoskalen and Corval's premier trade ship Dutiful Passage is on a mission to establish new business associations and to build a strong primary route that links well with existing loops and secondary routes. But reestablishing trade and preserving the lives of the few remaining members of the clan aren't all of Corval's problem. Matters come to a head as Dutiful Passage, accustomed to being welcomed and feted at those ports on its call list, finds itself denied docking and blacklisting while agents of the DOI mounted armed attacks on others of Corval's traders under the very eyes of port security systems. Traveling with Dutiful Trader on this unsettling journey is Paddy Yoskalen, the master trader's heir and his apprentice. Paddy is eager to make up for time lost due to Corval's unpleasantness with the Department of the Interior, but she is also keeping a secret so intense that her coming of age and perhaps her very life is threatened by it. And here is the latest entry in Sharon Lee and Steve Miller's Alliance of Equals.
Chapter 14 Vivalange Prosperu. Dav. The voice was almost familiar. He paused with his hand over a board that glittered with darkness and looked toward the calm. A single blue light glowed there, jewel-bright amid the shadows. Dav. The voice came again, clearer this time, firm and assured. Dav, it is Aliana. We are separate once more, and appear to be in good order. I believe our situation is for the moment stable and relatively benign. There are no active enemies within the scans. Your hurts have been healed, and you may take your chair at will. His chair? But surely he was in his chair, the board ready, and he about to... The blue calm light flashed. The dire board beneath his hand flared as if in answer, dials, gauges, and touchpads, all and each of them brilliantly blue. Light came up in the chamber about him, and he heard the shushing sound of a door unsealing. He spun the chair, and indeed, a door stood open, directly across, a lighted hallway beyond, and blue guide lights flashing along the floor, giving him his direction. Back he spun, to lock the board, ox board and war bridge it must be, he thought, and whatever danger had threatened the ship now passed. Situation stable and benign, his pilot had said, and he was wanted in the co-pilot's chair. But the ox board, when he addressed it, was found to be locked down, and in proper state, though he had not. But no matter, he thought, suddenly aware of the pounding of his heart. No matter. His pilot had called, and he was wanted at his post. Up he came, onto eager feet, following the guide lights out into the hall and up, moving into a smooth run, as eagerness overtook him, the air cool and tasting of mint. The hall curved, and there he found another door, blue light blazing above it. He extended his hand, paused just short of the plate. "Dav, it is Aliana." Her voice came from the speaker beside the door, and he smiled to hear her. "Wake, do, and let me see you." He pressed palm to plate. The door snapped back, and he opened his eyes. "It pains me to say so, pilot, but today's run indicates that your reaction times have slowed considerably since your last testing. First mate Danae Tiazen was another cousin, younger than Dilnem by a dozen years or more. She was not the sternest of those master pilots who had the tutoring of Paddy as part of a rotating schedule. Paddy sat with her hands folded on the edge of the simulation board, her eyes on the blank screens. She offered no argument, no protest. She did not state that of course the calibration subsystem required an overhaul. In fact, she had known that she had been slow. She had been, not to put too fine a point on it, only slightly more useful to her ship than a stuffed bunny. At least a stuffed bunny would have been amusing. What is interesting, and the circumstance which allowed you to finish your run within the parameters expected of a second-class provisional, Danae continued, is that your understanding of the board's geography appears to have made a leap. There were many less false starts, far fewer instances of an error corrected in mid-move. So, she knew the board better, but her speed was falling off. Danae might find that interesting, but Paddy could not see that this circumstance ultimately helped her case. If she was to be a pilot of Corval, if she was to remain a pilot of Corval, for she had a provisional second-class license in her pocket, she must recapture her proper speed. Do reactions simply slow? She asked, not quite daring to meet Danae's eyes. It has been known. Illness or injury are the most common causes of a loss in speed. In your own case, pilot, I would suggest a far simpler cause. I believe that you are bored. Paddy blinked and turned the chair slightly to look into her tutor's face. Let it be known that Danae Tiazen's sense of humor was not broad, nor was she much inclined to joke at the board, as was, say, Nis Charles, another of her tutors. Certainly, it did not seem that Danae was joking at the moment. If anything, her face was even sterner than usual, as if she had discovered a lamentable and irreparable flaw in Paddy's character. She also seemed to be waiting. Paddy hoped she was waiting to hear the only question it occurred to her to ask. "Bored, pilot?" she murmured. "Bored, pilot," Danae answered, with emphasis. Paddy took a careful breath, recalling today's run at the simulator. "Forgive me, pilot, but today's run was exacting." She had, in fact, been required to dance an avoidance in orbit, only to find high winds and sleet awaiting her when she hit atmosphere. An advanced run, suitable for one who aspired to first class, even as she lacked nearly a dozen hours yet to make her second-class ticket firm. "Indeed, it was exacting," Danae agreed, her eyes on Paddy's face. "But it was not real. The traveling rock, the weather, the course change from tower, all fiction. Your back brain knows this, even as your front brain was engaging with the problems. Possibly Paddy looked stricken. Danae held up a hand. You will please understand that I do not consider today's session in any way a failure. This improved understanding of board space is notable and important to your future success as a pilot. However, as I look back at your training records, I see that the last time you had live flight was Palomar. Is that correct? Yes, pilot. I've been on the sim ever since we began to come into ports where the passage isn't known. Danae was seen to sniff. While I understand that there is a need for caution under present circumstances, I believe that clipping a pilot's wings merely because a piece of space is strange to her is misguided. While there are some ports where we are welcome, or which welcome us more fully, pilots are by our very nature obliged to fly strange space. She sighed deeply and abruptly stood, bowing slightly in dismissal. Paddy scrambled to her feet and bowed as student to teacher. Thank you, pilot, she said, for the gift of your expertise. Danae was frowning at the simulation board and made no sign that she had heard. After a moment, Paddy moved to the door and let herself out.
That was another entry in the complete audiobook serialization of Alliance of Equals by Sharon Lee and Steve Miller. And that's it for the podcast. Thanks to Audible.com, to Baen publisher Toni Weisskopf for joining the interview this time, and to podcast theme composer Ruth Judkowitz. And the howling of quantum teleportation exploiting uplifted monkeys in a double clutch of infinitely stacked turtles ready for universe building. Plus thanks and praise for David Weber, author of Honor Among Enemies and creator of the Honor Harrington series. Please join us next time here at the hammering heart of science fiction and fantasy, and keep reaching for the stars.